Muy buenas tardes. Good evening. Well, this talk is kind of a follow-up from some of the issues I brought to you this morning regarding how careful we have to be with the species that are extremely delicate, so that we don't harm them while we are trying to study them to actually save them. The idea came because somebody from Hawaii who was working with some of the petrels and shearwaters there saw one of my papers, and basically this person had similar concerns to the ones I was raising, and how vegetation and procedures that researchers put in place actually are very important to not only monitor the species we love, but also to make sure that they dwell and survive. So in this continuous talk, I came to know Cecilia and Yuri, and they also had some examples, and actually here this morning I learned about more examples that probably and constructively will help us as a society, not only as a PSG, but as a society of ornithologists, perhaps develop a handbook or guidelines so that we have some things in mind when we go and work with critically endangered species. So let's just go ahead. And, well, I probably will be able to just go through all this information because you have been seeing the same information over and over. But basically, let's think about these fragile species on Mexico's islands in northwest Mexico, and let's pay attention to the disturbance that the humans, and particularly researchers or biologists and practitioners of biology, may cause. And as an example, we have included here not only seabirds. Well, sorry about that. We have included other species. Some of them, one of them just recently probably went extinct before our noses. And probably this, even though it's not a seabird, it's an island endemics from Cozumel. And a few days ago we had this procession in Mexico City to commemorate La Vaquita, which is another species we're about to lose, and that just cannot happen, no? So let's continue with these samples. Townsend's shearwater is basically, many people would agree, perhaps the most critically endangered seabird that breeds in the Americas. The population, at least in the breeding colonies that we see, is small. Hopefully there is still plenty of at sea and pelagic individuals, so that when things change on the islands, at least Clarion doesn't have direct predators. The species will recover, and perhaps also in San Benedicto sometime soon. Well, these are the current threats. You saw that in the morning. Here additionally is, for instance, when we are doing monitoring and we are working with the bird, would you like to feel the bird, or would you like to have gloves like these, very heavy gloves when you are handling? Or when you are using dogs to find the burrows, would you like to use certain kind of race or breed, or another one, or it doesn't matter? Or when you are doing that, would you actually open continuous pathways so that the potential predator like cats can actually get into all the burrows that you are finding? And this is important because we then, when checking cases, they may look very anecdotal, but we saw in Europe, we saw in Hawaii also. People don't want to say names because it's very sensitive, because we as scientists are supposed to be protecting the birds. But for instance, if you have a bird and then you put some ink that ink may actually facilitate the role of a predator to eat that bird that you're trying to protect. Or if you are on an island and you put, this actually, we learned about this very recently, you put a camera to monitor the burrow, and you have a crow that is a very intelligent and curious animal. What you are doing is bringing that animal to the camera, to the pole, and then you have a potential predator just next to the nest that you are trying to monitor, something like that. So the Socorro mockingbird, this is again not a seabird, but it's an island bird. Similarly, let's just go fast to this because probably you want to get more coffee. Again, with this guy on Socorro Island, it's a habitat specialist. What it requires is an unbroken area so that they can thrive and survive. When you start making pathways, even if it is only for one person, it's already kind of introducing some noise. When you build a road for an ATV, it's of course a little bit worse. The Socorro dove is an example of an extinction. It happened actually, well, I was talking to Dr. Pittman, and he went to Socorro Island in 1978 with Jill and other people I would like to talk about. But for sure, we know that this bird was there in 1972. I have been able to talk to some sailors, and the bird was in 74. The point here is that things can happen very fast. When they went to the island in 1978, they actually didn't find any of the Socorro doves. It's not a seabird, but it is as delicate because it is an island endemic. And this is just to build this consciousness. I'm not trying to point fingers to anyone, and I guess we all have been learning as we go in our careers. And now what we have is so many students, so many professionals going all around the world, and I think, and I believe, we need to have these protocols in place. Well, we are working to save the Socorro dove. We hope it will be a success story soon, but so far that's something to be written. And again, we have the bird that Yuri and Cecilia are working very diligently. Of course, if you have any questions, they are the experts. I'm just going to convey the message that there are some human activities that may damage these precious birds' main colony in Natividad. So this is a part of the work Yuri and Cecilia have been doing. They are noticing, I would say, from my point of view, it's a dramatic decrease. And what they are finding there is that there are some anthropogenic interference that may be causing the death of these animals. And well, you recently, of course, everything is context dependent, but like some people were telling me, why don't we build a cat-proof fence on Socorro Island so that we protect thousands of shearwaters? I said, no, that is going to kill them. And of course, I didn't have any proof, but I just know how they fly around the island. Well, this example in Natividad is showing you how a fence that is, let's say, poorly placed or taught is actually killing hundreds of shearwaters. And that, of course, sometimes could be something we should avoid in case the flyways where these shearwaters interfere or go actually into these fences. Let's see, well, Yuri and Cecilia went and actually filmed these events. I guess it's a very sad experience. I think it's telling us clearly that these human impacts can have a big dent in the demographics of a species. Also, this is something we see in many places. Rafa Chacon, he's not here, but he is also in Cozumel, which is an island where you receive so many tourists, and you have to protect these breeding sites from people that may just wander. And so here, of course, I didn't take that thing, but I can use my finger. We can see a tourist wondering, oh, this is even more efficient. And then we have some monitors who went to also work on that colony, but they have their tents that are kind of poorly placed on the island, and other predators that are coming to the nest and eating the egg contents. Cozumel thrasher, that's the thing. That's again is not a seabird, but this bird is most likely extinct. And actually, it caused me one of my biggest depressions. I have been working with very rare species for several years, and when we actually were able to see a few individuals, 2004, and then the hurricanes, and then no more. And again, it's another message that these things can happen very fast, and we kind of give things for granted. This happened also very fast. It happened again before our noses, and there was no protocols or people ready to do something when it was required. Then again, we go back to, well, you already told everything, this magnificent frigate bird is another story. Again, it's perhaps distributed all over the Americas, but there was a very large colony in Isla Margarita. Yuri asked why Isla Margarita was not part of a reserve. No? Bummer, no? We should have been a little bit more participative there. Still, again, we have a human population that allows cats. Cats are pretty much involved in many of the stories. And let me see. Qué buena traducción está haciendo. Okay, well, this story you already saw, but the point is that with those current threats, which are cats, we are losing the largest colony of the frigate bird. And with that, I close this talk, and I invite you to think about the possibility of working together so that we can develop kind of guidelines and ways to act. Because otherwise I know of more cases where conservationists, eradication practitioners are actually damaging the birds we are trying to save. Thank you. Thank you very much.